Most people spend their lives chasing power. They study confidence. They imitate successful people. They speak louder, work harder, compete longer, yet somehow they remain invisible. Because real power has never belonged to the loudest man. It belongs to the man who understands people before people understand him. For more than 500 years, one name has continued to provoke admiration, fear, and controversy, not because he taught cruelty, but because he exposed something most people would rather never admit. Human beings are not driven by ideals. They are driven by perception, by fear, by desire, by self-interest. Ignore that truth, and you will spend your entire life reacting to people you never truly understood. Accept it, and you begin seeing patterns that were always there, patterns hidden beneath smiles, hidden beneath compliments, hidden beneath loyalty. History remembers kings, generals, presidents, revolutionaries, but behind many of them stood ideas that quietly shaped the rise of empires and the collapse of civilizations. Few ideas have survived longer than those written by a quiet diplomat from Florence. His name was Niccolò Machiavelli. For centuries, his name has been misunderstood. Some call him ruthless, others call him dangerous. Many have never read a single page he wrote, yet almost everyone recognizes his name. That alone should make you curious, because truly dangerous knowledge rarely disappears. It simply changes hands. The greatest mistake people make is believing Machiavelli wrote a manual for tyrants. He didn't. He wrote about reality, not the world people wished existed, but the world they actually lived in. A world where appearances often outweigh intentions, where reputation speaks before character, where emotions cloud judgment, and where those who understand human nature quietly shape the decisions of those who don't. This is not a lesson about manipulation. It is a lesson about perception, not about becoming feared, but about becoming impossible to ignore. Tonight, we will explore 7 silent laws, principles hidden beneath politics, history, psychology, and human behavior. Some of them will challenge what you believe. Others may explain experiences you've carried for years without understanding. Listen carefully. Because these laws do not announce themselves, they reveal themselves, only to those willing to observe. Welcome to the Machiavellian Code. Most people believe intelligence is something that should be displayed. They want others to know how much they understand. They answer every question. They correct every mistake. They rush to prove they are the smartest person in the room. It feels powerful. It looks impressive. But Machiavelli understood something that most people never discover. The moment people know exactly what you know, they also know exactly how to prepare for you. Predictability is the silent enemy of influence. The more transparent your mind becomes, the easier it is for others to calculate your next move. History has never rewarded the person who revealed every card at the beginning of the game. It rewarded the one who left people guessing. Strategic ignorance is not about pretending to be unintelligent. It is the discipline of refusing to reveal your full understanding. There is a profound difference between lacking knowledge and choosing not to display it. Weak people confuse silence with insecurity. Strong people understand that silence creates uncertainty, and uncertainty creates leverage. Think about the people who truly intimidate a room. Rarely are they the loudest. Rarely are they the first to speak. More often they observe. They listen longer than everyone else. While others compete to be heard, they compete to understand. This changes everything, because every conversation contains 2 battles. The first is visible, words, opinions, arguments. The second remains hidden. It is the battle for information. Every time someone speaks, they reveal themselves, not intentionally, but inevitably. Their fears, their ambitions, their insecurities, their priorities, their emotional triggers. People believe they are expressing opinions. In reality, they are exposing patterns. The impatient man reveals his need for control. The arrogant man reveals his insecurity. The desperate man reveals his dependence on approval. The angry man reveals where he is easiest to manipulate. All of this information is freely given. Most people simply fail to notice it. Machiavelli believed that rulers should understand people before attempting to control them. That understanding never begins with speaking. It begins with watching. Observation is one of the most underestimated forms of power, not because it makes you appear mysterious, but because it allows reality to unfold before you interfere with it. Imagine entering a room where everyone is eager to impress. Some speak about success. Others exaggerate their experience. Some desperately seek recognition. Within minutes, they have already told you who they are, without asking a single question. The observer leaves that room with knowledge. The performer leaves only with attention. One possesses leverage. The other possesses applause. Only one of those has lasting value. Strategic ignorance also protects you from another invisible danger: your own ego. There is a strange temptation that follows intelligence. The desire to demonstrate it, to correct, to debate, to prove, to win every conversation. But every unnecessary victory comes with an invisible cost. The more often you prove your intelligence, the more resistance you create. People rarely resent knowledge. They resent feeling inferior. This is why truly influential individuals rarely compete over small victories. They allow others to feel intelligent. They allow others to underestimate them. Because underestimation creates freedom. History is filled with examples of leaders who lost everything because they believed being respected required displaying superiority at every opportunity. Eventually, they stopped observing. They stopped learning. They surrounded themselves with people who agreed with every decision. And the moment curiosity disappeared, their decline had already begun. Strategic ignorance demands something much harder than intelligence. It demands restraint. The restraint to ask one more question instead of giving one more answer. The restraint to watch instead of interrupting. The restraint to learn instead of performing. Ironically, the wisest people often appear less concerned with appearing wise, not because they lack confidence, but because they understand that knowledge grows faster in silence than it ever does in noise. Look carefully at those who quietly influence every room they enter. Notice how rarely they rush to impress, how calmly they allow others to reveal themselves, how comfortable they are with not being the center of attention. This is not passivity, it is positioning, because every word you choose not to speak becomes another opportunity to observe someone who cannot stop talking. And in the long game of power, information will always outweigh impression. The strongest position is rarely held by the person who knows the most. It belongs to the person who knows the most while revealing the least. Presence is powerful, but absence, when used correctly, is unforgettable. Most people spend their lives trying to be seen. They answer every message immediately. They attend every invitation. They explain every decision. They constantly remind the world that they exist, believing visibility creates influence. It rarely does. More often, constant availability creates something far more dangerous: familiarity. And familiarity slowly erodes respect. Human nature follows a strange pattern. We rarely value what is always within reach. The air around us keeps us alive, yet we almost never notice it. Silence, on the other hand, immediately captures our attention the moment it replaces noise. People work the same way. The person who is always present eventually becomes part of the background. Their words lose weight because they are heard too often. Their attention loses value because it is given too freely. Their absence would barely be noticed because they never allowed anyone to experience it. Machiavelli understood that influence is not created through constant exposure. It is created through controlled scarcity. Scarcity has always been one of the oldest laws of power. Gold is valuable because it is rare. Diamonds are treasured because they are difficult to obtain. Even time becomes precious the moment we realize it is limited. Why should your attention be any different? Many people mistake this principle for manipulation. It is not. It is discipline. There is a profound difference between disappearing to punish people and disappearing because your life is too meaningful to revolve around their expectations. The first comes from insecurity. The second comes from purpose. Look carefully at history. The most influential rulers were rarely accessible to everyone. Kings did not spend their days proving their importance. Great generals did not interrupt every conversation to remind people of their authority. Their presence carried weight precisely because it was limited. Distance created anticipation. Anticipation created value. Value created influence. Now compare that to the modern world. Notifications demand immediate replies. Social media rewards constant visibility. People measure relationships by response times rather than genuine connection. The result is predictable. Few are memorable. There is another reason calculated absence is so powerful. It reveals truth. The moment you stop chasing people, you discover who was actually walking toward you. The moment you stop initiating every conversation, you discover who genuinely values your presence. The moment you stop explaining yourself, you discover who was only listening to the version of you that benefited them. Absence is one of the most honest tests human relationships can endure. It strips away performance. It removes obligation. It exposes intention. This principle also protects something many people unknowingly surrender: mental clarity. People who remain constantly connected rarely have time to hear their own thoughts. Every opinion becomes influenced by another opinion. Every decision seeks approval before conviction. Every silence is immediately filled with distraction. Eventually, they lose the ability to distinguish their own voice from the noise surrounding them. Strategic distance restores that voice. It reminds you that solitude is not isolation, it is calibration. There are moments when stepping back accomplishes more than stepping forward. Negotiators understand this. They know the first person willing to walk away often gains unexpected leverage. Investors understand this. They know patience frequently outperforms urgency. Even nature follows this rhythm. The tide advances, then retreats, only to return with greater force. Power follows the same pattern. Constant motion exhausts, measured retreat strengthens. This is why emotionally reactive people struggle with influence. They fear silence. They fear unanswered messages. They fear disappearing from other people's minds, so they keep talking, keep posting, keep explaining, keep proving. Without realizing, every unnecessary appearance quietly reduces the impact of the next one. The truly confident individual thinks differently. He understands that not every accusation deserves a response. Not every invitation deserves acceptance. Not every conflict deserves participation. Sometimes, the strongest move is refusing to move at all. This is not arrogance. It is emotional economy. Every conversation costs attention. Every argument costs energy. Every unnecessary explanation costs authority. Wise people spend these resources carefully because they understand something most never learn. Attention is finite. Time is finite. Energy is finite. Spend them without discipline, and eventually you will have nothing valuable left to offer. Perhaps this explains why the most respected people often appear difficult to reach, not because they enjoy making others wait, but because they have already learned the cost of saying yes to everything. The world interprets constant availability as ordinary. It interprets selective presence as significance. Remember this whenever you feel the urge to explain yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. Remember this whenever you feel pressured to remain visible simply because everyone else refuses to disappear. Power does not grow through constant exposure. It grows through deliberate presence. Because in the architecture of influence, absence is not emptiness, it is pressure, invisible, silent, and impossible to ignore. The greatest obstacle to power is rarely another person, it is your own reflection. Most people believe they understand themselves, they know their strengths, they know their weaknesses, they know what motivates them, at least. That is what they believe. Reality is far less comforting. Human beings rarely see themselves as they truly are. Instead, they see the version of themselves they desperately want to believe. Niccolò Machiavelli spent years observing princes, generals, merchants, and politicians. Although they came from different backgrounds, they shared one dangerous weakness. Each believed they were immune to the very flaws that destroyed everyone else. The ambitious ruler believed his ambition was wisdom. The arrogant commander mistook pride for confidence. The fearful leader disguised hesitation as caution. None of them recognized the trap, because ego is a remarkable illusionist. It does not hide the truth from the world, it hides the truth from you, and once that happens, every decision becomes distorted. Imagine standing in front of a mirror that flatters you. Every flaw disappears, every weakness looks smaller, every mistake suddenly feels justified. You would eventually trust that mirror, even though it lies to you every single day. That is exactly what the human ego does. It edits reality, not to protect your future, but to protect your pride. This is why failure rarely arrives as a surprise. It arrives after years of ignored warnings. The signs were always there. Friends tried to speak. Reality tried to intervene. Consequences quietly accumulated. But the mirror kept whispering the same comforting message. You're right. They're wrong. They simply don't understand you. Nothing is more dangerous than becoming your own favorite audience. Power begins to decay the moment you stop questioning yourself. History has repeated this lesson endlessly. Empires did not collapse because their enemies suddenly became stronger. Many collapsed because their rulers stopped listening. Success became certainty. Certainty became arrogance. Arrogance became blindness. Blindness became ruin. The tragedy is that ego rarely announces itself with loud confidence. Sometimes it wears a much quieter disguise. The need to always have the final word. The inability to admit mistakes. The habit of explaining every criticism away. The constant search for people who agree with you, little by little. Your world becomes smaller, not because reality changed, but because your mirror stopped reflecting it. Observe the people who grow the fastest. They share an unusual habit. They become suspicious of their own conclusions. Instead of asking, how can I prove I'm right? They ask, what if I'm missing something? That single question has prevented more failures than intelligence ever could. Machiavelli understood that leaders are rarely destroyed by what they know. They are destroyed by what they refuse to know. The refusal to confront uncomfortable truths creates a dangerous comfort. Comfort creates complacency. Complacency creates vulnerability. Eventually, someone who sees reality more clearly takes your place. There is another layer to this trap, perhaps the most dangerous one. People spend enormous energy trying to manage how others see them, their reputation, their image, their status, their identity. But almost no one asks a more important question. Have I become a prisoner of the image I've created? Because once your identity becomes public, your ego begins protecting it. You no longer make decisions based on wisdom. You make them based on consistency. You continue a failing strategy, simply because admitting change would damage you. You reject better ideas. Because they didn't come from you, you defend old beliefs, long after evidence has buried them. At that moment, you are no longer leading your life. Your reputation is. This is why the wisest strategists constantly destroy their own assumptions before someone else has the opportunity to do it for them. They challenge themselves. They question themselves. They seek disagreement instead of applause, not because they enjoy criticism, but because reality is infinitely more valuable than comfort. The strongest mind is not the one that never doubts. It is the one courageous enough to doubt itself before reality is forced to. The mirror will always offer you two reflections. One is comforting. The other is truthful. Only one of them will make you stronger. Choose carefully, because every kingdom first falls inside the mind of its ruler, long before its walls begin to crumble. Florence, early 16th century. A politician could lose an army without losing a single soldier. He only needed to lose his reputation before a battle was fought, before a treaty was signed, before a merchant invested a single coin. One invisible force had already begun shaping the outcome. Reputation. It entered every room before its owner did. It whispered into every negotiation. It quietly decided who would be trusted, who would be feared. Machiavelli observed this repeatedly throughout his political career. Kings did not survive because they were the strongest. Many survived because people believed they were. The distinction is enormous. Power does not exist only in reality. It exists in perception. And perception often becomes reality. Most people misunderstand reputation. They think it is merely what others say about them, a collection of opinions, a social image, a pleasant bonus earned through years of good behavior. It is far more dangerous than that. Reputation is psychological momentum. Every interaction you have today is influenced by everything people believed about you yesterday. Walk into a room carrying the reputation of competence, and your ideas receive attention before you speak. Walk into the same room carrying the reputation of unreliability, and even your best ideas struggle to survive. Nothing about your intelligence changed, only perception did. This is why reputation behaves like compound interest. Every consistent action strengthens it. Every careless decision weakens it, slowly, almost invisibly, until one day, people stop judging what you do. They judge who they believe you are. That moment changes everything, because now, your reputation begins making decisions on your behalf. Think carefully about the individuals whose presence immediately commands attention. Sometimes they say very little. Sometimes they remain almost silent. Yet the room adjusts itself around them. Why? Because people are not reacting to the person standing there. They are reacting to the story they have already accepted. Human beings rarely experience reality directly. They experience expectations. Expectation is one of the strongest psychological forces ever discovered. Tell people a restaurant is extraordinary, and ordinary food suddenly tastes better. Tell investors a company is unstoppable, and confidence begins attracting more confidence. Tell society a leader is weak, and eventually people begin searching for evidence that confirms it. Reputation plants the first idea. The human mind eagerly finishes the rest. This is why careless words are so expensive. Every unnecessary promise, every emotional outburst, every broken commitment, every desperate attempt to impress. None of these disappear after the moment passes. They become bricks, quietly constructing the identity others assign to you, brick by brick, conversation by conversation, year after year. Wise strategists understand something else. A reputation is not only a shield, it is also a weapon, not because it intimidates through fear, but because it influences behavior before conflict even begins. Imagine two negotiators entering the same room. One has earned a reputation for patience. The other is known for emotional reactions before either speaks. The negotiation has already changed. People prepare differently. They reveal different information. They choose different words. One reputation creates caution. The other invites exploitation. Neither needed to announce anything. Their history spoke first. There is another lesson hidden here, perhaps the most important one. Many people spend years trying to look powerful. They purchase symbols of status, luxury, titles, recognition, followers. But symbols decay quickly. Character compounds. True reputation is never built through performance. It is built through repetition, quiet repetition, repeated discipline, repeated restraint, repeated integrity. When shortcuts appear easier, eventually, consistency becomes identity, identity becomes reputation, reputation becomes influence, and influence begins opening doors that force could never unlock. Machiavelli never suggested chasing admiration. Admiration is unstable. Crowds admire today and forget tomorrow. Respect. Respect survives disappointment. Respect survives silence. Respect survives distance because it rests upon predictability. People know exactly what standards you refuse to compromise. That certainty creates confidence, and confidence creates authority. Protect your reputation long before you think you need it, because when crisis finally arrives, people do not suddenly decide who to trust. They simply return to the reputation you spent years creating. In the end, your greatest bodyguard will never be your strength. It will never be your wealth. It will never even be your intelligence. It will be the invisible story people tell themselves the moment your name enters the room.